Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 234, Understanding Food Literacy with Char Nolan.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Char Nolan about understanding food literacy and how it differs in affluent and impoverished areas. If you're not familiar with food literacy yet, you will be. And you'll want to share this episode with any parents, educators, or humans that you know. But the truth is, food literacy is not just for kids. Adults have a big disconnect with food, and many don't understand where it comes from, what effects processing has on our food, and how these foods affect our health. Let's face it, with the convenience of prepared foods in grocery stores and restaurants, if you can call some of those places restaurants, there's a lack of planning and skill that we need to make healthy choices. Char is a woman of many hats. She's first and foremost, unofficially, the Philadelphia plant-based advocate. She's a Rouxbe certified chef, a food literacy educator, eCornell plant-based nutrition graduate, and a little bit more than that as well. She's worked alongside some of the greatest influencers in plant-based nutrition. You'll get to see her passion about her latest project in our chat with her today.
Char helps us understand how food deserts and impoverished communities are at a huge disadvantage and how we all need to be food literacy enthusiasts. Stay tuned right till the end of this episode to join us in the hashtag plant kindness revolution and help pay it forward.
Podcasting is like the street performing of radio. Street performers make up their acts, plan, prepare, and get all dressed up. Podcasters seduce guests into coming onto the show, prepare the show, and get the best recording gadgets. Street performers lure their audience in with a great opening act. Podcasters are constantly finding unique ways to let others know what's going on. Street performers have foot traffic to lure in, and podcasters have to work hard to get themselves out there. Street performers come back day after day because they love the way that people look when they laugh and are entertained. Podcasters come back week after week because they're passionate about their message and are humbled by how many people they help. Every now and again, you come across a performance that excites you, that you enjoy, that you can relate to, and then you throw a couple of bucks in the pot. Well, that pot for podcasters is called Patreon. It's a unique way that listeners can show their appreciation and help cover some of the hosting costs and hours of hard work that it takes to put shows out like this. So if you're feeling like this show lights you up, helps you, informs you, or maybe entertains you, we would be grateful for your donation at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even $1 helps us cover costs and ramp up our game. Thank you to those who already contribute and to those who will.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
Today, I'm so grateful because it's finally happened. We are now authors. We can add that to our resume, if you will. We have published our Yummy Foods activity book for kids, and it's so exciting just to hold it in my hands and be able to show it to other people.
It's pretty awesome. I think it's been in the works for a little while, and we're very excited that it's on Amazon. And of course, it'll be linked up in our show notes for people to check out, but we're super excited and happy about it.
Good work, dude. Char Nolan, thank you so much for coming on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
You're very welcome.
We wanted to know if you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and our listeners.
You know, I actually do have a really serious one, and I will tell you that I made a very conscious decision that for the first week of January, I would not touch any social media because it's very easy for me to plug into Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm so grateful because I was so present in my life every single day. If I went out to grab a cup of tea or something with a friend, I wasn't preoccupied with, oh my God, I better get a picture of this tea. I was just preoccupied with my friends and my family and what they had to say and what they had to do. And, you know, it was a very stress-free week. And I just felt so grateful about that.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's very connected to my word. Have you heard people are choosing words that they want to represent for the year? So a lot of people will choose a word and every year they choose a different word and that's their focus for the year. And this year my word is present because I want it, and not because I want lots of presents, but because I want to be more present in everything that I'm doing and not worry about what I'm posting on on Instagram later on, or who's in healthy plant-based families asking a question and I've got to get to it and answer it. When I'm with my kids, I want to be with my kids. When I'm cooking, I want to be cooking. Not even listening to podcasts while I cook, really. I want to be putting my love and everything into what I'm doing. So I'm very connected with your moment of gratitude, and I'm glad that was successful for you.
It was great. And it will change what platform I go to, when I go to it, what I choose to do with it. Because the reality of it is that the most important things in my life are the people who are closest to me, and that I need to put the same energy into them as I do to everything else. And it's really easy to take your family for granted almost, because you know they're always going to be there.
Yeah. And you know what? They're not necessarily always going to be there, but with a plant-based lifestyle, lots of people are sticking around for a lot longer, and lots of people are enjoying their quality of life so much more because they've found a plant-based lifestyle. And what I really wanted to hear from you before we talk about food literacy today, I wanted to know how you got into a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
It's actually very funny. I worked at Whole Foods Market at a suburban Philadelphia store, and I was the marketing director for that store. And a new book came in. It was called The Engine 2 Diet. This was in 2009. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, 28 days? I couldn't eat chicken for 28 days, boneless, skinless chicken breast for 28 days. And a few weeks later, I went to a regional meeting where our regional president walked in, and I thought, oh my God, he looks great. And he was saying that he did this Engine 2 thing and he felt so wonderful. And on my way home, I stopped at a bookstore when there were bookstores on every corner. And I bought the Engine 2 book and went to a grocery store, not ever knowing that it was going to be my last day as a carnivore omnivore. And I thought, I'm going to do this for 28 days. But what I did is every day I wrote down, when this thing is over, I'm going to have, standard American food. But on day 10, I woke up and I had really horrible osteoarthritis. And I woke up, and for the first time in a trillion years, I was like, oh my gosh. So then John Mackey, the president of Whole Foods Market, was implementing a program called Health Starts Here, which was one of the programs in my domain. And I got sent to Austin, Texas, and spent a week at an Engine 2 immersion, where I met Rip, who I worked for 4 years, and Jane and Anne and Essie and everyone else. And I come from a family where my parents died of heart disease and cancer, where my siblings are physical wrecks. And all they ever say to me is, Charlene, when are you going to start eating normal again, the way that we used to? And it's really hard to explain because you never want to put anybody down for what they do or how they eat. But the reality is that I'm nearly 70 years old. I don't take any medication except for a D3 in the winter and a B12 every day, and that's about it. So I'm pretty much sold that following a whole food, plant-based, no oil diet for me is my avenue of choice because I just feel so great.
I think Adam and I just got whiplash at the same time when you said that you're almost 7 years old. I had no idea. I had no idea. You look amazing, amazing. I think we met a year and a half ago already. We met in person for the first time down at the Knob, and wow, I had no idea. That's great. So you went whole food, plant-based straight out of the gate, no oil.
Deep end of the pool, cold turkey.
I think it's incredible all the work that John Mackey's done with Whole Foods and all of their employees, and getting the Engine 2 program and Rip and all his work. It's all fantastic stuff. And what you just said was that you didn't think that it would really do much for you until it actually happened, and you saw after 10 days the impact that it had. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't believe. They don't believe that it's going to cure anything, that it's going to make a difference in their lives, and it's just some gimmick or another diet. And one thing that I struggle with is getting people to understand what it could do for them without them actually doing it. And I think the bottom line is, until people actually try it, until people actually go through the process and experience it on their own, they're not really going to understand the impact that it could have on their lives. So we need to get more people like you went to the immersion and you got immersed in it. We need more people to actually take it on, which I think is starting to happen, so that they could actually feel the impact that it has on themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. It's sort of like when you hear someone say, I went plant-based, I was on 14 medications, I'm on 4, and that they start to physically feel better, or they go back after eating a whole food plant-based no oil diet saying that my doctor was so surprised that I was going to do this, and at first he wondered where I was going to get my protein from, those kinds of things. I think that part of the whole cycle is that food is very personal, and that for some people food is more than just nourishment, and people don't always want to be cognizant of what they are putting in their mouth, because sometimes food can be a source of comfort or whatever. But the reality is that you can eat delicious food and still lead a very fruitful and productive life. And I always tell people who I work with, the best part about being plant-based, kitchen cleanup is a breeze. Because when you don't have animal fat to clean up, you're just like rinsing off dishes and either putting them in the dishwasher or the drain to dry, because it's just easy.
You don't have to worry about salmonella. You could put half as much detergent in your dishwasher. You don't have to worry about like oil residue or anything like that. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is true. I think finding the way to make this mainstream and let people know that this is easy and cost effective. But when you watch, I work at home, and so my TV is my office mate. Keep it on in the background. During the day, the advertisements on television are lethal. And the things that they want you to believe, there's nothing at all healthy. But I can go to a fast food place and get a breakfast of a biscuit and some kind of meat or something for 79 cents. So if kale is $1.99 and I have to go home and strip it and cook it, we have to do something with advertisers and TV and radio and print and other things like that as well.
I think we're starting to get there. And part of the reason why we're seeing so many more food commercials is because they're starting to be threatened by people understanding more about food and how it affects their body and wanting to make healthier choices and starting to vote with their dollars. So they need to be more aggressive. And that's why we see so many more milk commercials coming back on, because we've got almond milk commercials now. So they need to relaunch all of these old campaigns that they didn't need to launch for years because everybody was hooked on milk. Well, now everybody's hooked on alternative plant-based milks, and they've got to push even harder. So the more people take part in eating healthier and feel better, they're going to continue with it. And then they're going to fall off the wagon possibly, and they're going to go back to feeling the way that they did before. And that's going to be their major reminder that this is the way I need to go, and they're going to stick with it. And we're going to start to see a lot of big changes in the food industry. But I think that what a lot of people are getting away from, because food is so readily available and so cheap in restaurants or frozen meals or what have you, people are really getting away from understanding what food is and where the food that they're eating is really coming from. And there's this big buzzword, food literacy, out there right now, and people really need to get back to the basics of food literacy. When we think about reading and reading literacy, after teaching kindergarten for 15 years, it's not just about learning how to read big words. It's about picture books and how to use the pictures to try to decipher what the words mean and try to figure out what the word means in the middle of the sentence based on the meaning of the sentence. Well, the same thing with our food. We need to understand all the different aspects of our food, what comes before, what comes now, what comes later, and what effect does it have on the entire story.
Well, as we were chatting earlier, the carrot story, where I decided that at my Meatless Monday classes at the Free Library of Philadelphia, that we would talk about food origins, because I think that's another part of the equation. Where does food actually come from, and how I brought in a can of carrots, a bag of frozen carrots, baby carrots, carrots in a plastic bag, and then finally, and I brought in some carrots that weren't pretty, and they were curly-cued and also different colors to freak them out a little bit. And then I brought in carrots with greens. And when I tell you the truth, the kids who come to my class were absolutely mesmerized. It was absolutely mesmerizing that they got to see what carrots actually look like. And I told them how when you pick a carrot out of the ground, how it has that little popping noise, They were just amazed by it. So food origins, and in this area, we have a wonderful medical facility called Iaconelli Hospital, and they actually have a half-acre farm on the hospital grounds where they pick the food and then they take it to 3 medical practices in underserved areas. And then a health educator will show them how to use kale or how to use carrots and give them a recipe, or whatever. So I think that everybody is kind of taking those baby steps into the plant-based world and letting people know, as Hippocrates said 60 trillion years ago, that food was in fact really medicine. So, and I just want to tell you one very quick story about this, because my background as a public health educator has always been in low-income populations. And about a year ago, I was teaching a class to senior citizens. And when I had my phone interview, the woman who I interviewed with said to me, "Do you think you would relate well to older people?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure," because she had no idea how old I was. And I show up for the class, and I am older than most of the people who have come to this class, some with oxygen, some with below the knee amputations, people dependent on oxygen. I mean, it was kind of eye-opening. And they were making their veggie burgers from scratch. And I was feeling like, oh my God, this is great. And all of a sudden, over the PA system came, "If you paid for donuts, the donut part is here." And every person in the class laughed.
Shame.
And I remember thinking, oh, this is not funny. But then they all came back and they wrapped their little donuts away. And then we had oven fries, and we made their burgers, and they thought everything was delicious. But they live in a food desert. Their access to food is minimum. And if they want to buy a potato, it's going to be 3 times as much as it would be at a grocery store. So it's kind of like, I think that we're on the same page, that we see this whole cycle of, okay, so when do you jump in and break the cycle so that access to food is easier? And then we can teach them how to cook the food and what to do with it. And then let them know that they don't have to eat disgusting, horrible meat products, for example.
And the more often they're choosing the disgusting meat products because it's cheaper and because it's more readily available, that's a vote, right? They're telling the government, this is okay. I'm settling for this. No problem. Don't worry about me. But if they start to demand more produce coming in, if they start to buy more canned beans than canned ham, then that's sending a message, and that's a way to start to change things. But at the same time, a can of beans is not going to fill them the same way that a can of ham is. So how are they going to balance that? How are they going to have enough money to feel full, to feel satiated? Are they going to even know what to do with it if they weren't raised eating beans or eating vegetables? So it is this vicious cycle that we really need to educate people on, who are there in that situation. But for the rest of us who aren't, we need to be aware of that situation too, so that we can start to use our forces to start to make a difference there as well.
Do they have Aldi where you live, the grocery store called Aldi?
No.
So, it's a German grocery store. And when they first came to the Philadelphia area, they always put them in low-income neighborhoods. But now Aldi has really upped its game, and they're in all zip codes now. But, for example, when I go buy groceries for my classes, I get them at Aldi, because there's an Aldi in their community, so that instead of them thinking they have to go to Whole Foods Market or Trader Joe's, but Aldi has this, and you hold up, whatever the product is. And at the end of class, I take every piece of food that has not been used and I lay it out on this countertop. And it could be broccoli, whole wheat pasta, dates, maple syrup, whatever. And then say to them, you each get to take one item of food home with you. And then they get excited, and they'll come back the next week and say, "Miss Chef Char, my mom never had a date before, and she thought they were delicious." So it's just kind of interesting that, helping to open up the eyes of children between the ages of maybe 8 and 16, and then adults who come because the classes are free. And, I think some of them might be hungry, and they know at the end of the class they get to eat everything that they make, which is really fun. But I think that we need to identify how to get food more easily to people. And in Philadelphia, we have farmers markets where you can take your EBT or your SNAP dollars and pay for fresh vegetables and things like that. And a lot of the farmers markets have chefs on board who will show you how to saute some kale and chard and mix some mushrooms and potatoes with it and have it be a hearty and delicious meal.
I want to interrupt you for a minute. I want to just go back and let's explain some vocabulary that we've used in case not everybody listening is familiar with everything, because I'm not necessarily familiar with everything. So you said SNAP. Can you explain to us what that is? Because it's not something, I mean, as a Canadian, but also as a middle class person, it's not something that I'm familiar with.
SNAP, I forget exactly what the acronym is, but it's the new word for food stamps.
Okay.
And you get a little like credit card, and the state government puts dollars on it so that you can go shopping and get your groceries for the week or the month, actually.
And then a food desert is usually a place that's low income, where people are not getting a lot of fresh produce, where it's mostly canned goods or boxed goods. And it's also very low income, and a lot of the people in these areas are also on credit. So
SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it's a program of the USDA Food and Nutrition. So that's kind of interesting right there. When you think of, Dr. Campbell going to the USDA during Forks Over Knives and, trying to make his statement. A food desert is usually referred to someone living in the inner city where their only access to purchasing food might be at a corner store or a bodega where things are sold loose, whether it be diapers or cigarettes, or they'll open up a bag of onions and sell you one onion for $1 or $1.50 or whatever. So there's a lot of processed food there. And when you live in a food desert, you don't have access to a lot of fresh, leafy green vegetables and things like that.
We're taking a pause to let you know that this episode of the Plant Trainers podcast is sponsored by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure low rates on life insurance for health-conscious people like runners, cyclists, triathletes, strength trainers, vegans, and more. We think Health IQ is crazy impressive and so innovative. We only tell you about products or services that fit into our values and that we could or would or do use ourselves. Despite the fact that we happen to be Canadian, we wanted to get the Health IQ experience so we could tell you more about it. Well, needless to say, we spent a Friday night taking their quizzes, and we recommend you do it too. Not only will you be able to save up to 33% on your life insurance by being fit, active, or being a compassionate eater, but you'll have a blast trying to beat the clock answering their skill testing questions. And the prize is peace of mind for you and your family and extra cash in your pocket because they offer exclusive rates, but you have to qualify through one of their Health IQ quizzes. So put it on your calendar now and head to healthiq.com/planttrainers and take their quiz to see if you qualify and get your free quote today. If you call them, mention the promo code PLANTTRAINERS when you talk to the Health IQ agent. And now back to the show. So I think what we need to do is start to educate people in low-income areas, but also in more prosperous areas as well about what food really is, how food really affects the body, how it affects our health, how it affects the economy, and how it affects the environment. And that's really kind of that loose definition of what food literacy is right now. And it's all a buzz. It's a buzzword for children. It's coming into schools. And I think we're really starting with grassroots by starting to educate children exactly what you're doing at the library with your food course, and teaching little children that carrots don't just come from a can, and carrots are grown in the ground and they come from a seed, and this is the size of a carrot seed, but this is the size of a tomato seed, and they're different sizes, they're different shapes, they're different colors, and these are the things that are really important. If you were to define food literacy, how would you define it?
I would define food literacy as a way of teaching people. I always look at food origins because I think that that's really, really important. So for me, food literacy is understanding food origins and what to do with food.
So we've been talking about low-income families and people that have a difficulty getting food. I just want to mention that I teach nutrition classes at the school I'm working in, and every year I break out my table and bring in my fruits and veggies, and we do a smoothie class, and we do some chia pudding and some fancy salad kind of stuff or desserts. And as soon as the period's about to end, an announcement comes on and says, come by and grab a free slice of pizza. And within half a second, they're all gone. You know, they're running off to the pizza. The food that I'm talking about and teaching about is ignored. So I just want to point out that this problem, as far as educating about food, is affecting everybody across the board. So just because you're a low-income family doesn't mean you're uneducated about food. Even the affluent students that I'm working with and the families that I see, they're doing the same thing. They bought into the media and the marketing and the cheese and the pizza and the meats, and they're disregarding all the whole healthy foods that are so simple to put together. And there always is one or two students that are super interested and want to learn about it and love it. And it's just interesting. I wanted to point out that it's affecting everyone across the board, and education is a huge problem when it comes to food.
I think also what Char said before about having her buddy in her office with her all day long and hearing the commercials that are on TV, I think that a lot of us are allowing the television to educate our children on food and what food is and what is good, what does a body good, right? We have the TV on while we eat. We use the TV to entertain our children. And I'm not saying that we don't do it either, right? Like, we don't have the TV on very often. Usually when we do, it's because we're sitting down together and watching a movie together and having a picnic. And that's kind of like our Sunday night thing. But I learned so much about food from the television when I was a kid, and I just had to have everything that was out there and wanted everything that was out there. And there's a big disconnect. We're not sitting down to meals as much as a family. We're not having conversations. We're not cooking enough as parents, and we're not inviting our children into that experience. So the default is eat what's most readily available, eat what tastes great, eat what the commercials tell us to eat, and eat what our friends are eating.
Well, I think there are also so many other social aspects to it. You and I are probably batch cookers, so we probably have a big pot of rice. We probably have some potatoes and a bunch of other stuff, prepped kale all ready to throw into whatever. And I will eat the same thing 3 nights in a row. I'll just, make it look a little bit different or whatever. But when you think about the word leftovers, for some people, that is a sign of being poor or whatever. And I wonder sometimes if in lower income populations that you would never want to eat a leftover, because that just reinforces, your socioeconomic status. So let me go and get a 79-cent banquet meal because my family will get meat, potatoes, and a green vegetable for 79 cents. I mean, I think that it's an uphill battle for all of us, but I think that we're all making strides. I think that's the one interesting thing. I think I may have shared with you that a couple of years ago, I took the cookbook project course in food literacy to become a food literacy coach. And it was so wonderful and so helpful. And the people who run it have their heart in this program. And they're such wonderful teachers. And I learned so much from them, even being in, the community for many, many years. So I think that everybody wants to help this change become a reality. And it's obvious that the two of you want everyone that you meet to feel as great as you do, or to, reverse any kind of medical condition. And, when you and I met a year and a half ago, 4 weeks before that, I had a hip replacement. And when I went to have my pre-op, the woman was looking through my medication sheet and she said, "Where's your medication sheet?" And I said, "I don't take any medicine." And then her next question to me was, "Well, who's your cardiologist?" And I said, "Oh my God, am I supposed to have a cardiologist?" Yeah. So my point is that food really is medicine. And if that's the message that we can continue to teach, I have personally myself, I have to remind myself not to take anybody's food inventory of how they shop, where they shop, what they eat, how they make it. But if for one day a week I know that they're going to eat a bountiful, meat-free meal on a Monday night that they help to make, then I think that we're making strides.
I think people really want to do better, but there's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of time. There's just a lack of where do I start? And oh my God, what if I go out and spend $20 to buy these ingredients and then my family doesn't like it? And what do I feed them? And it's just going to be a waste anyway. So there's a lot of fear around it as well. With anything that we take on that's new, there's always going to be fear. There's always going to be questions. But I'm so optimistic because I see so many people jumping into it more and asking more questions. And as we were talking earlier, I had mentioned that I had written about food literacy in a couple of Facebook groups, including Healthy Plant-Based Families. And people were like, well, what's food literacy? I don't know what food literacy is. And it's really just food education, right? It's food education. They're like, oh, I want to teach my kids how to peel a carrot. And I want, my children to understand that it's hard work making this meal that we're about to sit down and eat and they're about to throw back in my face, right? Like, or what have you. Or I want my children to be more independent and to take more responsibility in the kitchen. And all of these amazing topics started coming up and all of these great conversations starting to take place as well. So I really am optimistic that people want to make a change, but there's so many barriers or so many fears that are keeping a lot of people back as well. But the more that we continue doing what we're doing, so, for you doing your program in the free library and all this other work that you're doing as well, and other people like us who are trying to get the word out there, and really what Adam and I are striving for is to educate as many families or individuals as possible and find a way to get it to the younger generations, because we grew up eating what we ate, right? We ate from boxes. We ate
the freezer,
from the freezer, or the TV dinners and all those things that we grew up on. And we've spent our 30s and hopefully not our 40s, but, lots of people are spending their 20s, 30s, and 40s feeling ill, feeling pain, feeling discomfort, not feeling like themselves. And they're trying to reverse all of these unnecessary diseases that have taken place that are here because of food and lifestyle. And it's really not what we want for our children or anybody's children to have to grow up and then spend really, really good years in doctor's offices and feeling sick and being in bed. We want children to feel like children their whole life and experience their 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s and 60s like anybody should, not the way that our generations are right now.
Or look at the Edisons in their 80s.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean,
firecrackers.
Totally, just totally unbelievable. Two last things. The A one is when I worked at Whole Foods, twice a month we would go to two different homeless shelters and we would bring a plant-based meal. And when I mean plant-based, I mean an Esselstyn plant-based meal. And you show up at these shelters and they're like, and after about 4 or 5 visits, they were like, oh, yippee, the plant people are here, because they knew they were going to get a fruit salad and a regular salad and a big veggie burger, and they were going to drink delicious water. And so it's just kind of interesting that I think that those messages are being heard, and I think that we have to remain the bulldozers that we are in terms of paving the way. And I'll just sort of make you laugh. A couple of rules in class. I'm a believer that kids like rules. They like to have a little, regimen to whatever it is that they do. So this kid walked into the class with a bag of chips. And one of the other kids said to him, whoa, 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 whoa. Miss Chef Char, don't allow no crinkle sounds in here. You better get rid of those chips right away. And he was like, oh, my God. So he put them in his backpack. So, they used to come in eating candy. And now they don't eat candy anymore, and they love eating the fresh fruit that we have out, or that I make them they make little hummus boats for themselves with veggies and hummus and, whatever on them. So I think that people are receptive, and I think that people are open. And here's the best thing. Kids will come back with their mother or their grandmother. And then the lady will come and say to me, I have hypertension. Is that what my doctor meant when he told me that I shouldn't be eating a lot of salt? Is that what he meant? So that you kind of become like this reinforcer of what their physician told them, but they had no idea. Or, this is even better. They had no idea what a clogged artery looked like. So you pop it up on the screen from your computer and they're like, oh, That's what it looks like. And then when you say to them, yeah, and if you eat a lot of greens and don't eat any meat, your arteries might get nice, open and clear, and they could whistle again, So I just think we have to remain being bulldozers. I think you're right.
Absolutely. So one of the things that Adam and I have done recently is we created the Yummy Foods activity book for kids. But the best part about it is that it's not just for kids. So basically it's an activity book. It's got all these aspects of food literacy that we've been talking about today. So it has the crossword puzzles, and it has word searches, and it has coloring, but it has a lot of good fill in the blanks and a lot of good vocabulary in there that a lot of adults that we know, or that we even came across in our research in the last few years, that we didn't know before. And we've added that in so that it's not just about doing the puzzles. It's about actually learning the vocabulary, learning new things about food, understanding what types of foods come from which types of regions, or even what certain foods have in them that are beneficial for the body. And not everything is really easy. So there's going to be some research that's going to be done there. So children are going to rely on the parents to have a conversation about it and look it up, use Google or what have you. So we're really excited about the idea that, yeah, we made this book for kids because it's great. It occupies the children in restaurants, or it occupies the children while you're cooking until they're ready to come in and start cooking with you. But really, there's a big education component for parents there. And the more we educate parents and say, hey, well, what is this new food? I've never heard of that before. Well, okay, maybe we could find it in the grocery store tomorrow when we go grocery shopping and figure out how to make it at home. So we're really excited about families engaging in this book and overcoming some of these things that you're talking about. If they don't have access to great programs like you're providing, then they can almost use it as criteria, as a program for themselves at home, and see what they can come up with home. So we're really excited about that.
Well, I think you hit on a great point, and that's that parents are also reading it. And for health literature to be really accepted by people, it needs to be written, for adults rather, it needs to be written at between a 3rd and a 5th grade level, reading level. So I'm imagining that your piece is probably parent perfect.
Well, we're going to send you a copy. It just became available on Amazon. So
really?
Yeah.
Oh my.
So we're very excited.
Very excited.
If you heard our moment of gratitude, we're now authors, so we're very excited about that, and we're gonna send you a copy, absolutely. So let's get some really practical ideas in before we wrap up. We wanted to know what you think that parents could be doing to influence their schools to get more food literacy, plant-based food, some real food education in the schools.
That's tough.
She has an answer. She just needs to think about it for a second.
No, I taught 5th grade. So I think that even before you get to the school, that maybe you need to start doing things in the home where the child is empowered, whether it be writing down the words on the grocery list, or it be, when my kids were little, I have 2 kids, they're grown now, of course, but I would take a marker and write left on one of their hands and R on the other for right. So when we went down the grocery aisles, one of them got everything on the left side, and the other got everything on the right side, because, you want to diminish those arguments of who does what or whatever. So writing down the words on a list, going grocery shopping, helping to put groceries away. And then what I do notice from these classes is that kids will eat whatever it is as long as they've made it. They feel that sense of pride, that same sense of pride that they feel when they make a picture. They feel the same exact pride when they have shredded that lettuce to perfection. So I think it's getting your kids involved. And then if I were in a PTO, I would offer a healthy movie night at school, healthy potluck, and show a movie, a fun movie that's not related to food, but, something Disney-esque or something like that. But I think you've got to start at home first and empower those little kids. So part of the lunchroom conversation, when I taught school, kids who ate healthy were made fun of. So the reality now is that you want to make that the norm so that Johnny or Jane can say, yeah, I made these potato wedges last night. I helped my mom cut the potatoes.
So I teach yoga in a school, and as I was walking through the school, I heard one of the older children saying, and I made the whole dinner last night. I made the burgers, and I made the vegetable, and I made the potatoes, and everybody ate it, and guess what? They really, really liked it. And I think it was a 6th or 7th grade child. I actually happen to know that this is one child in the whole school I know, and that's a child who was talking. But she was so excited about what she made, and whether what she made was good, bad, or otherwise, her parents obviously did a good job in instilling that she should be proud of what she's doing, and that she is being independent about it, and that they loved eating it, and that it was healthy and it was delicious. And our children are exactly the same way. They get really excited about the kinds of things that they make. And the first thing that Russell ever made was potato crisps, right? So we cut the potatoes into like chip type slices, and we put them down on the parchment paper, and he wrote out the recipe on, it took him a half an hour, but he wrote out the recipe on the computer, and the last ingredient was love, and you mix it up with your hands, and he was so excited about it. And then we made a video about how to make hummus, because he loved making hummus and he loved eating hummus. And Jordan woke up one day, not woke up out of her sleep, but just woke up out of this like stupor, and she's like, I want to make a salad. And Adam and I looked at each other and said, salad? What? And we're like, okay. She's like, I need the cantaloupe, and I need the strawberries, and I need the lettuce, and we're like, okay, whatever you want. And she made this salad, and she made it for herself a couple of times over a few weeks. And then she was a salad eater. So you have to look for those moments. As a teacher, there's teachable moments, and there's moments that come up where you could kind of plant a seed, no pun intended, plant a seed in your child's head that they can be responsible for the food that they eat, and they could be responsible for good choices. And then boom, all of a sudden it's going to blossom and it's going to grow, and they can totally run with it. And as long as we're there to support them in that, then there's usually a good outcome.
I definitely agree that it needs to start in the home. And one of the assignments that I give to a lot of students and kids that I work with is to have them go home and cook a meal for their family. And while our listeners are not my students, they may have kids. This is a good thing for you to try out at home. Have your kids put together a meal for the family, and obviously help them through that process, but see how it goes, because it's going to be an awesome learning experience for everyone involved.
So I think no matter how old your children are, there's something that you can do. So whether it's writing the grocery list, or checking off the grocery list in the grocery store, or showing children what apples look like or cantaloupe looks like before it's cut up, and letting them touch and feel and smell and do all these different texture type experiments with their food, or let them look through a cookbook and choose what they're gonna cook next. Or if you're having broccoli for dinner, after broccoli, go to the computer and look up the origin of broccoli, and where does it come from? Where did it originate from? How does it grow? Does it grow in a bush, in a tree, straight from the ground, under the ground? And start to educate your children on these very basic things, because they're things that we take for granted that people know. But as you said at the beginning, where these children were like, knock their socks off that carrots grow in the ground and, have these little furry roots sticking out of them and come in different shapes and sizes. We take that for granted that everybody knows that, and not everybody does.
Yeah, but I think the most important thing for all of us is that we must continue to push the wagon and help as many people as we can. And even if it starts with doing Meatless Monday, one day a week, that is a start in the right direction. And that the other thing is that it's really important for us to transfer this information in a loving way, and in a way that isn't intimidating. Because I've had friends for my whole lifetime who think I'm a kook now because of the way that I eat. And we don't get invited to events sometimes because it's like, oh God, Char's going to come. All we're going to hear about is plant-based, plant-strong, plant. And the reality of it is that there's nothing better for you. There's nothing more kind and loving for you than following a whole food, plant-based diet. So I think that we all know what it is that we need to do. And I think that on a one-on-one basis, we do get to do this, and that part of our own joy is that we want to hit the whole world all at once.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it out there for all the listeners to do some kind of pay it forward, do some kind of random act of plant-basedness, actually. A random act of plant-basedness. Yeah, that makes no sense. But that's what I want everybody to do. So whether it's point something out to somebody in the grocery store, or if you have neighbors who you know can't afford some vegetables, buy them a bag of vegetables, or put something on your social media to educate people on why certain foods are good for them, or why they should be eating them, or where that food comes from. Do something that helps you to educate other people and help us be the bulldozers that we are, and take a little bit of action there yourself. And let's hashtag that. How can we hashtag that?
How about if you called it hashtag plant kindness?
There you go.
That's pretty.
There, hashtag plant kindness, and do something kind for other people and show them the plant-based way today.
And that's really a good point, because how many times have you been at a coffee shop where you see someone buy a cup of coffee or whatever for the person behind them? So why not have it be a bag of vegetables? That's really nice. I like that.
And maybe so they'll post it on their social media. They could tag us in that at Plant Trainers. They could tag you, Char Nolan, CHAR_NOLAN, and get that out there, and hashtag plant kindness. Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Awesome. Plant kindness. Thank you so much, Char, for being on the Plant Trainers podcast today. If people want to follow your amazing social media, how would they find you? How can they reach out to you?
They can find me best on Instagram. I find in my week of not using social media that the most joyful is Instagram, because you get to see beautiful pictures. And to me, Instagram seems like it's really, really positive. So they can find me at Char_NOLAN. And, I think a couple of I hope everybody is, of course, following you, following Jane_Esselstyn_RN and her dad, Dr. Esselstyn, as well as Engine 2, because I think that those are some real good, good jumping off points for everyone as well.
They have very good Instagram accounts. So again, we wanted to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for everything that you do, pushing that bulldozer, getting the plant-based word out there, everything that you're doing in low-income communities right now, really, really helping people who need the help most of all. Your heart is so kind, your heart is so large, and we really appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
You're very sweet. Thank you so much. Have a great day, week, month, year.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Plant Trainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day.